pettiest reason your family member tried to ruin your life? My sister cornered me in the kitchen after Thanksgiving dinner and pulled out an actual ruler to measure our engagement rings. Yours is 2 millimeters wider than mine and you need to exchange it immediately, she said, grabbing my hand so hard it hurt. Older sisters get the bigger diamonds. My fiancé had saved for 2 years to buy my ring and I wasn't returning it. That's not how engagement rings work, I said. Mine is a full carat and yours is clearly 1.5, she said, pulling out a jeweler's loop. Either you downgrade or I'll make sure that ring disappears. You're insane, I said. Dad agrees that it's embarrassing for the older daughter to have the smaller diamond, she said. When people notice, they'll think my husband loves me less. Her husband looked exhausted when she dragged him in to back her up, and he mentioned he'd already spent $20,000 on her ring. 2 weeks later, she filed a lawsuit claiming I'd deliberately chosen a larger diamond to humiliate her and damage her marriage. She hired a gemologist as an expert witness to testify about the psychological impact of diamond size disparities between siblings, and demanded I be forced to downgrade to a half-carat ring. She brought charts showing how cultures worldwide respected birth order in jewelry distribution, and tried to get a restraining order preventing me from wearing my ring in public. The judge asked if this was a joke before dismissing it, but she stood up and accused him of not understanding sister dynamics and diamond hierarchies. After months of her posting comparison photos of our rings online, she showed up at my engagement party with what she claimed was a 3-carat diamond upgrade. She made everyone stop to admire it, but when she held it up to the light, it was obviously cubic zirconia from the way it sparkled wrong. Her husband admitted he couldn't afford an upgrade, so she'd bought it herself, and when people realized it was fake, she screamed that at least it was bigger than mine. She pulled out a portable diamond tester to prove mine was fake too, but when it confirmed mine was real, she threw it at the wall and said the machine was broken. She decided to steal my ring by staging an elaborate heist at my apartment. She hired actors from Craigslist to pretend to be maintenance workers while she snuck in through the bathroom window, but she got stuck halfway through. She dangled there for 2 hours trying to wiggle free, and when she finally pushed through, she flew across the bathroom and crashed into the mirror. She got up covered in glass cuts and searched for my ring, tearing apart everything, but I was wearing it. She tried to escape back through the window but slipped on the broken glass and fell into the bathtub, hitting the faucet so hard it broke off and water started spraying everywhere. She ran to shut off the water main but grabbed the gas valve instead and filled the apartment with fumes, then tried to call for help but dropped her phone in the toilet. She was so dizzy from the gas that she stumbled into my closet thinking it was the exit, and pulled the entire clothing rack down on herself, then crawled out and made it to the actual door, but it was locked from inside, and she'd forgotten how locks worked from the fumes. She finally broke down the door with my kitchen stool but used too much force and went flying down the stairs, bouncing off every step until she landed in the lobby fountain. The impact knocked out 3 teeth and broke her jaw, and when she tried to explain to the paramedics what happened, she couldn't talk properly, and they thought she was having a stroke. You destroyed my face because you had to have a bigger diamond, she mumbled through her wired jaw in the hospital. I'll never smile again because you're so materialistic. I wasn't even home when you broke into my apartment, I said, but my mom grabbed my wrist. Your sister has permanent dental damage because you couldn't let her have this one thing, she said, while my sister pointed at her missing teeth. Every time I looked at my ring now, all I could see was my sister's broken jaw and gaps where her teeth used to be. My family shared photos of her dental x-rays next to pictures of my ring, saying I valued carats over family. Her husband left her during the recovery because he couldn't handle the drama anymore, and everyone blamed me for destroying her marriage with my larger diamond. My parents tried to make me pay for her dental reconstruction since my selfish choice had driven her to this, and even my co-workers said it was cruel to keep wearing the ring after what happened. That's when I decided enough was enough. She wanted to be cruel. 2 could play that game. I drove straight to the police station with my fiancé and walked up to the desk officer. The officer took us to a small room and pulled out forms while I explained everything about sister breaking into my apartment. He wrote down every detail about her getting stuck in the bathroom window for 2 hours before crashing through. My fiancé showed him photos on his phone of the broken mirror, the destroyed faucet, and the door she'd kicked down. The officer's eyes got wider as I described the gas valve mistake and how she'd ended up in the lobby fountain. He called in another officer who specialized in property crimes and they both took more notes. They wanted to see the apartment right away, so we drove back with them following in their patrol car. The officers took photos of everything, measuring the window she'd climbed through and documenting the glass still on the bathroom floor. One officer found her blood on the broken mirror pieces and bagged it as evidence. They spent 2 hours photographing every bit of damage and writing down serial numbers from my destroyed belongings. My fiancé kept insisting we needed security cameras immediately, so we drove to the electronics store right after the police left. We bought 4 cameras, 1 for each entrance plus an extra for the hallway. The store employee helped us pick ones that recorded to the cloud so sister couldn't just steal the footage. We spent the whole afternoon drilling holes and running cables through the walls. My fiancé tested each camera with his phone app, making sure they covered every angle. I changed all the locks too, even though sister never had keys, because I couldn't shake the feeling she'd try again. The locksmith installed deadbolts that couldn't be picked and gave us extra keys. My phone rang the next morning and the building manager's voice sounded stressed. He said the damage estimate from their contractor came to $8,000. My security deposit was only $1,500 and wouldn't cover even a quarter of the repairs. He needed the police report for insurance and warned me they might not cover intentional damage by a family member. I emailed him the case number and officer's contact information right away. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, but I recognized Sister's writing style immediately. She typed through her wired jaw asking why I was being so mean by calling the police on family. The message was full of typos from her broken jaw, making it hard to type properly. She said I was ruining her life over a stupid ring and begged me to drop everything. My fiancé saw the message and told me to screenshot it but not respond at all. He said we needed to document everything but not give her any ammunition. I saved the screenshot in a folder I'd started called Evidence on my computer. 3 days later, Dad's car pulled up outside our apartment and he started pounding on the door. He demanded I drop the charges because families don't send each other to jail. I showed him the photos on my phone of the destroyed bathroom and thousands in damage. He scrolled through them but just shook his head and said I should have given her my ring. None of this would have happened if you'd just been the bigger person, he said. He left after I refused to budge, slamming the door so hard the new cameras shook. I Googled attorneys who handled restraining orders and found Theodore Maynard's website. His office was downtown and he specialized in family harassment cases. I called and his secretary said Sister's break-in definitely qualified for an emergency order. She scheduled us for the next week and told me to bring all my documentation. Theodore's email asked for copies of everything, so I spent hours organizing the police report and photos. Mom started calling my phone nonstop, so I blocked her number. She switched to calling my fiancé's phone instead, leaving long voicemails about destroying the family. She cried in one message saying Sister could barely eat soup through her wired jaw. Your fiancé is selfish and you're enabling her cruelty, she told him. My fiancé played the messages for me and we saved them all to the evidence folder. Sister's husband sent me an email late one night with an apology for everything. He said he was filing for divorce and couldn't handle the drama anymore. Attached were screenshots of Sister's texts from weeks before the break-in. She'd been planning it all along, even researching which window would be easiest to break through. The texts showed her hiring the fake maintenance workers from Craigslist as distractions. I forwarded everything to Theodore immediately, and he replied saying this was perfect evidence. My coworkers kept asking about the family drama because Mom had called my office. She'd tried to get through to me by telling the receptionist it was an emergency. HR called me in for a meeting after Mom's third call that week. I explained the situation and showed them the restraining order paperwork I'd started. They put a note in the system not to transfer any family calls to me. The insurance company called and said they'd assigned Aurélie Dubois as the investigator. She reviewed the police report and said Sister's deliberate actions made things complicated. The policy might not cover intentional damage by someone I knew personally. Aurélie said she'd need to do a full investigation before they could approve any payment. My phone started buzzing with notifications that night while I was cleaning up broken glass from the bathroom floor. Sister had posted photos of her dental x-rays on Facebook, with a long story about how I'd caused her injuries. The post showed 3 missing teeth circled in red marker, and her swollen jaw from different angles. She tagged every family member and mutual friend we had, writing that I valued diamonds over family. Comments started pouring in from aunts and cousins saying they couldn't believe how cruel I'd become. My high school friends were messaging me asking if the story was true about the ring. I scrolled through dozens of comments calling me heartless and selfish and materialistic. My hands shook as I took screenshots of everything before deactivating my Facebook account completely. Theodore called the next morning saying he'd filed all the paperwork for the restraining order. He'd included the police report, the break-in photos, and Sister's social media harassment as evidence. The court scheduled our hearing for 2 weeks out, and I felt sick thinking about seeing her. Theodore said to keep documenting everything and not to respond to any family messages at all. That afternoon, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize, but I answered anyway. It was Mariana Dubois, Aurélie's supervisor at the insurance company, calling about our claim personally. She said they'd reviewed everything and would cover the apartment repairs up to our policy limit. The best part was they'd go after Sister directly to get their money back from her. She explained that since Sister committed a crime, the insurance company could sue her for damages. I felt so relieved that someone finally saw this wasn't my fault at all. My dad's text came through while I was at work trying to focus on spreadsheets. He said Sister needed $30,000 for dental reconstruction, and I should pay half. The text went on about family responsibility and how I'd driven her to desperation. I typed back that she broke into my apartment and caused her own injuries committing a crime. Then I blocked his number before he could respond with more guilt trips. That night, my fiancé sat me down at our kitchen table with wedding magazines. He suggested we move our wedding date up and keep the location completely secret. It hurt so much thinking about planning a wedding without my parents or sister there. But he was right that she'd definitely try to ruin our special day somehow. We started looking at small venues that could accommodate just his family and our friends. A week passed before Sister somehow got my new work email address I'd just created. Her message was pages long, rambling about birth order and respect and family hierarchies. She said younger sisters had to defer to older ones in all major life decisions. The email mentioned ancient traditions and cultural norms that I'd supposedly violated with my ring. Theodore added the email to our evidence file immediately when I forwarded it. He said it showed she wasn't respecting boundaries even with criminal charges pending against her. The restraining order hearing day arrived faster than I expected, and I threw up that morning. Sister showed up to court with her jaw still wired shut, playing the victim perfectly. She wore a neck brace I knew she didn't need and walked with a cane. The judge reviewed all our evidence, including the break-in photos and her harassment messages. He looked at sister's criminal charges and her social media posts about me. After 20 minutes of reviewing everything, he granted a 2-year protective order effective immediately. Sister couldn't come within 500 feet of me or contact me in any way. She jumped up from her chair even with the wired jaw and started yelling. The words came out garbled, but everyone could understand she was saying I'd stolen her life. She pointed at her missing teeth and then at my engagement ring on my finger. The judge banged his gavel and warned her about contempt of court charges. Her lawyer grabbed her arm and told her to only speak through him from now on. Sister kept trying to talk, but the lawyer practically dragged her back to her seat. The judge made it clear that any violation would result in immediate jail time. Outside the courthouse, my mom was waiting by the doors with her arms crossed. She blocked my path and said I was heartless for getting a restraining order. "She's your sister," she kept saying over and over like that excused everything. My fiancé stepped between us, and Mom's face turned red with anger. She called him controlling and manipulative and said he'd turned me against my family. Security guards started walking over, so Mom backed away but kept yelling about family loyalty. 2 days later, Mom showed up at our apartment with an envelope in her hand. She said sister wanted me to have this important document about medical expenses. I didn't touch the envelope, but my fiancé took it and opened it carefully. Inside was a letter from sister demanding I pay all her dental bills immediately. The letter listed every procedure she needed with costs and payment deadlines highlighted in yellow. Theodore said this was a clear violation since sister used Mom to contact me indirectly. He documented everything and said we could file for contempt if this continued at all. The violation meant sister could face jail time for breaking the protective order already. My fiancé found Christian Larson's name through his company's employee assistance program and booked me an appointment for the next week. I walked into his office feeling stupid for needing therapy over engagement ring drama, but he immediately made me comfortable. He specialized in family trauma and boundary setting, which was exactly what I needed right now. During our first session, I told him everything from the Thanksgiving measuring to the break-in to the current violations. He listened without judgment, and then explained that sister's behavior wasn't normal sibling rivalry, but actual harassment and abuse. He helped me see that I didn't cause any of this by having a bigger ring. Sister made her own choices to break into my apartment and hurt herself in the process. The criminal case started moving forward the next week with the prosecutor charging sister with breaking and entering plus property destruction. Her public defender tried to argue that emotional distress over the rings made her temporarily lose her mind. The prosecutor showed the judge all the planning evidence, including the Craigslist ads for fake maintenance workers. He said premeditation proved she knew exactly what she was doing when she climbed through my window. The judge agreed and set a trial date for 3 months out unless sister wanted to plea bargain. Orally from the insurance company called me with good news about recovering money from sister's assets. They'd managed to get $5,000, which wasn't everything, but definitely helped with the repair costs. She said sister had fought the asset seizure, but the court sided with the insurance company. The money would be in my account within 2 weeks to help cover what I'd already paid. Sister's ex-husband kept finding more evidence and sending it to Theodore for our cases. He found receipts showing sister bought glass cutters and lockpicks the week before the break-in. There were also text messages between sister and the actors discussing the fake maintenance plan. Theodore added everything to both the criminal case and our civil lawsuit for damages. Dad showed up at my fiancé's parents' house on a Saturday morning, demanding they make me drop the charges. His mom answered the door and listened politely while Dad ranted about family loyalty and forgiveness. His dad came to the door and firmly told my dad to leave their property immediately. When Dad kept arguing, they said they were proud of me for standing up for myself. Dad drove away angry, but at least my future in-laws supported me completely in this mess. Sister's trial date got moved up when she decided to plead guilty to reduce charges. She got 2 years probation and mandatory therapy sessions, plus full restitution for the apartment damage. The judge made it clear that any violation of probation would mean immediate jail time. She also had to pay all the court costs, which added another few thousand to her debt. Her lawyer looked relieved when she was accepted the plea deal instead of going to trial. Mom sent a group text to the entire extended family saying I wasn't welcome at Christmas. She said I had to apologize to sister for ruining her life with legal action first. My cousins started taking sides with half supporting me and half saying family doesn't sue family. The family group chat turned into a war zone with everyone arguing about who was right. Some relatives I hadn't talked to in years suddenly had strong opinions about my ring. Christian helped me write a response during our next therapy session that set boundaries without being mean. I explained that I'd have relationships with anyone who respected my boundaries and treated me with respect, but I wouldn't tolerate harassment or abuse from anyone regardless of blood relation. He helped me see that setting boundaries wasn't cruel, but actually the healthiest thing for everyone. The response was calm and clear without attacking anyone or getting defensive about my choices. Sister's dental surgeon's office called saying I owed $30,000 for her reconstruction work. Sister had listed me as a payment guarantor on all her forms without my knowledge or permission. I had to get Theodore to send legal documents proving I never signed anything and wasn't responsible. The office manager apologized and said they'd have to pursue sister directly for payment now. It took weeks of back and forth before they finally removed me from the account. My fiancé started looking for new apartments and buildings with better security after everything that happened. We found a place with a doorman and controlled access where visitors had to be announced first. The rent was $500 more per month, but the peace of mind was worth every penny. Sister couldn't possibly break in here with all the security cameras and locked doors. We signed the lease immediately and started packing up our old apartment that still smelled like gas. The boxes were only half packed when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. And when I answered, a woman named Nadia from Sister's dental office explained that Sister had been calling them 20 times a day, demanding different payment plans and screaming at the staff when they wouldn't give her credit. Nadia asked if our restraining order covered their office since Sister kept threatening to show up in person. So I gave her Theodore's number, and he called them back within an hour to confirm that yes, the restraining order absolutely covered harassment through third parties, and they should document every call and threat. The dental office started recording all her calls after that, and Nadia sent me copies of the voicemails where Sister ranted about how I should be paying since I caused her injuries, which Theodore added to our growing file of restraining order violations. 3 months passed with us settling into the new secure apartment, and I was checking my work email when Dad's message popped up saying Sister's divorce was final, and she had to move back in with them because she couldn't afford her own place anymore. He wrote that this was entirely my fault for not just switching rings when she first asked, and now they had to support a 35-year-old daughter with no job, no husband, and dental bills that would take years to pay off. I deleted the email without responding and focused on my work presentation instead, which must have impressed my boss because she called me into her office that afternoon to offer me a promotion with a $20,000 raise. She mentioned how professionally I'd handled all the family drama without letting it affect my work, and the extra money would definitely help cover the thousands in legal fees I'd been paying Theodore every month. The promotion announcement went out to the whole company, and I was finally feeling good about something when our wedding venue called my fiancé's phone, asking about the cancellation requests they'd received. My fiancé put them on speaker, and they explained someone claiming to be me had called trying to cancel everything. But thankfully, we'd set up a password system after Sister's other attempts, so they knew it was fake and documented the whole thing, including the phone number it came from. Theodore filed contempt charges the next day using the venue's documentation, plus all the other violations we'd been tracking, and the judge was so fed up with Sister's behavior that he sentenced her to 30 days in jail with no possibility of early release. Mom called me sobbing that night, saying I was ruining Sister's life over jewelry, that 30 days in jail would destroy her mentally, and asking how I could be so heartless to my own family. I hung up when she started comparing me to criminals and blocked her number too, then spent the weekend with my fiancé planning our wedding in peace for the first time since this whole mess started. We booked everything under his name only, and gave all the vendors recent photos of Sister with strict instructions to call police if she showed up, and we even hired security for the ceremony just to be safe. During my next session with Christian, I broke down crying about the guilt I felt over Sister going to jail, even though logically I knew she'd done this to herself. Christian reminded me that I didn't force her through my bathroom window or make her violate the restraining order repeatedly, and that consequences for actions weren't cruelty, but actually the only way she might learn to stop. He helped me work through the difference between being responsible for someone else's choices and protecting myself from harassment, and by the end of the session, I felt steadier about everything. 23 days into her sentence, Sister got released early for good behavior, but had to wear an ankle monitor for 6 months as part of her probation terms. She immediately posted online about being a victim of the justice system, and how her own sister had her locked up over a piece of carbon. But most of the comments called her out for breaking into my apartment, and she deleted the posts within hours. My fiancé's parents called that weekend offering to host our wedding at their estate instead of the venue, saying it would be more secure and private with their gated property, and they wanted us to feel safe on our special day. It would be smaller than we originally planned with only 50 guests instead of 200, but we'd be surrounded by people who actually supported our marriage instead of drama and family taking sides. I was addressing invitations with my fiancé's mom when Dad's email came through with just 2 sentences saying he was disappointed in the daughter I'd become and that Mom wouldn't be attending any wedding that Sister couldn't attend. I forwarded it straight to Christian without even reading it twice, and during our session we worked through why I'd spent so many years seeking approval from parents who only valued me when I put Sister first, and how their disappointment was really about losing control over me rather than anything I'd actually done wrong. The week before our wedding, Sister's ankle monitor got removed, and she drove straight to our apartment complex that same afternoon. Our security cameras caught her circling the building 3 times before parking across the street and just sitting there watching our windows for over an hour. My fiancé called the police while I watched her on the camera app, and when the cops pulled up, she tried to drive away, but they blocked her in. She rolled down her window and told them she was just visiting a friend, but they ran her plates and saw the protective order in the system. Theodore called me 20 minutes later saying she'd been arrested for violating the restraining order, and this time the judge wasn't playing around. At her hearing the next morning, the prosecutor showed the security footage plus records of her driving by 4 other times that week we hadn't even noticed. The judge sentenced her to 6 months with no chance of early release this time, and she screamed in court that I was stealing her life. Mom called that night saying she couldn't come to my wedding if Sister was locked up because of me, and Dad sent a text saying the same thing. It hurt, but I wasn't surprised anymore, and my fiancé held me while I deleted their messages without responding. Our wedding day came 3 weeks later, and his family filled both sides of the small chapel we'd booked. His mom walked me down the aisle wearing the corsage I'd bought for my own mother, and his dad sat in the front row where mine should have been. The ceremony was beautiful with just 50 people who actually cared about us, and nobody mentioned the missing family or empty chairs. My new mother-in-law had decorated everything in soft pink and white roses, and she'd even hired a photographer to capture every moment. During our honeymoon in Hawaii, we got an email from Theodore saying sister had been moved to the psychiatric wing of the jail. The guards found her drawing hundreds of ring sketches on her cell walls with a pencil she'd hidden, covering every inch with different diamond shapes and sizes. She'd been writing my name under the smaller ones and hers under the bigger ones over and over until they had to put her on medication. We tried not to think about it and spent the rest of our trip swimming and eating fresh fish and watching sunsets from our hotel balcony. When we got home 2 weeks later, there was a for sale sign in front of my parents' house. The realtor told us they needed the money for sister's legal bills and medical costs, and they'd already accepted an offer below asking price. I drove by one last time and saw Mom packing boxes in the garage, but when she looked up and saw my car, she turned away and went inside. 6 months after sister first broke into my apartment, Orly called to say the insurance case was officially closed. They'd recovered what they could from sister's accounts, and her future wages would be garnished once she got a job, though who knew when that would be. The apartment complex had been fully reimbursed for the damage, and our rental insurance had covered our personal items, so at least financially we were whole again. Christian and I decided to reduce our sessions to once a month since I was doing so much better. I could wear my ring without feeling guilty, and I'd stopped checking the security cameras every 5 minutes expecting to see sister. He said I'd made incredible progress accepting that my family's choices weren't my fault or my responsibility to fix. When sister got released 8 months after the wedding, she went straight to a halfway house since our parents had sold the house and moved to a small apartment. Her lawyer sent me a letter she'd written saying she forgave me for everything I'd done to her, completely missing the irony that she was in jail for breaking into my apartment. I showed it to Christian at our next session, and we both actually laughed at how she still didn't get it. My husband's parents threw us a reception at their country club since we'd missed having a real party after our small ceremony. His mom gave a speech about how family isn't about blood, but about who shows up for you, and everyone raised their glasses while I tried not to cry. They'd invited all their friends and my husband's co-workers, and it felt like the wedding reception we should have had. About a year after everything started, I was buying groceries when someone called my name by the produce section. It was sister's ex-husband looking healthier than I'd ever seen him, picking out apples with a woman who was clearly his new girlfriend. He thanked me for standing up to sister because watching me do it gave him the courage to finally leave. He said he'd been trapped in that marriage for years, afraid of her reactions if he tried to get out, but seeing someone else refuse to give in to her demands showed him it was possible. His new girlfriend seemed nice and normal, and she said she'd heard so much about me and thought I was brave for protecting myself. They invited us to dinner sometime, but we all knew that would be too weird and just smiled and said maybe. I left the store feeling strange but validated, knowing that at least one good thing had come from all this mess. 3 weeks later, Mom's number showed up on my phone while I was making dinner, and I almost dropped the knife I was holding. She left a voicemail asking if we could meet for coffee without Dad or sister knowing because she missed me and wanted to understand what happened. I played it for Christian at our next session, and he helped me write a response saying I needed more time before any contact. Mom texted back that she understood but hoped I'd change my mind soon, and I blocked her number because seeing her messages made my chest tight. 2 months after that, I was sitting on the bathroom floor staring at 3 positive pregnancy tests lined up on the counter. My husband found me there 20 minutes later and sat down next to me, both of us looking at those pink lines that changed everything. He said maybe we shouldn't tell my family yet, since they'd probably find a way to ruin this too, and even though it hurt knowing my parents wouldn't know about their grandchild, I knew he was right. We told his parents that weekend and his mom cried happy tears while his dad started planning which room would be the nursery when we visited. Sister finished her probation around the same time and posted on social media that she was moving to Colorado for a fresh start and new opportunities. She shared photos of her new apartment and job at a dental office, talking about recovery and growth but never mentioning breaking into my apartment or losing teeth or anything real. People commented how brave she was for starting over, and I had to stop looking because it made me want to scream at my laptop. My husband got promoted to senior manager the next month with a huge raise and better benefits. We spent weekends looking at houses in safe neighborhoods with good schools and security systems already installed. We found a perfect place with a gated entry and cameras everywhere, and a master bedroom with a built-in safe where I could lock my ring at night. The previous owners were moving overseas and needed a quick sale, so we got it for less than asking price and moved in before my second trimester started. On my birthday, a card showed up with no return address, just Dad's handwriting inside saying disappointed under the generic birthday message. My husband grabbed it before I could read it again and tore it into pieces, reminding me that I didn't need that negativity while growing our baby. We spent my birthday at his parents' house instead, where they made my favorite cake and gave me baby clothes they'd been secretly buying. 6 months passed and my belly grew rounder while we painted the nursery soft yellow and assembled the crib. I was grocery shopping one afternoon when I saw someone with the same hair as sister reaching for yogurt in the dairy section. My heart started racing and my hands got sweaty on the cart handle until she turned around, and it was just some random woman who looked nothing like her. I had to sit in my car for 10 minutes before I could drive home, realizing I was still scared even 2 years after the break-in. Our daughter arrived 3 weeks early on a rainy Tuesday morning after 14 hours of labor. My husband's whole family filled the waiting room and took turns holding her while I recovered. His mom kept saying the baby had my smile and my husband's calm nature, and his sister brought me flowers and magazines. The nurses commented on how lucky we were to have such a supportive family, not knowing half of them weren't even blood related to me. We brought the baby home to our safe house with the cameras and the alarm system that I still checked twice before bed. She slept in a bassinet next to our bed where I could see her breathing in the nightlight glow. My husband would bring her to me for night feedings and rub my back while I nursed, both of us exhausted but happy in our little bubble. His parents came over every few days with casseroles and offers to babysit, so we could shower or nap. They never asked about my family or why they weren't involved, just stepped in and filled those empty spaces without making me feel bad about it. One night I was sitting in the nursery rocking the baby when I looked down at my ring catching the light from the moon outside. The diamond that started everything sparkled on my finger while I held this tiny person we'd made together. This ring wasn't just about the 2 years my husband saved anymore, or the carrot size that drove my sister crazy. It meant choosing the family that chose me back and building something new from the ashes of what I'd lost. It meant learning that love isn't about blood or birth order, but about who shows up when things get hard. Looking at my daughter's perfect fingers wrapped around mine, I knew she'd grow up surrounded by people who'd never make her feel less than for any reason. And that's the lesson tucked inside this story. I always want you to walk away with something you can actually use, not just words. If even one piece gave you a new perspective, that's a win. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.